Hello and welcome back to the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. This is Penny Sansevieri and Amy Cornell. Today we are talking about the importance of swapping out your book cover and why you would even want to consider changing up your book cover. Amy, I know this was your idea and this was inspired by one of our amazing and awesome clients. Do you want to rock out with this show?
Sure. Yeah. So the client is Marlene Bell. You can check her out.
Hi, Marlene, if you're listening.
I know. Thanks, Marlene. And I will say she's really fun to work with in the sense that she works really hard. She's been doing this a while. And so I really love, Penny, that we work with both debut authors and veteran authors and, literally everything in between, because they all have different perspectives. Our new authors remind us of where there are holes in information and education and things like that. And our veteran authors a lot of them are really good at tracking what's worked for them over the years and what hasn't. And Marlene is definitely an excellent example of somebody who pays attention to what works for her books and what doesn't, which is critical. I think when we've been to conferences before, and I still remember when we went to an RWA conference forever ago, and that whole panel was with best-selling indie authors, which was just such a cool space to be in, and that kind of feedback that they had. And that was kind of the resounding, they all said, we pay attention to what works and what doesn't, because we have to do it ourselves. And Marlene is definitely one of those people. And recently it came up because she's releasing a new book and she had different covers and she was asking for our opinion on it. And as we were talking about it, she let us know that she actually planned on using both of them. And she was trying to perfect both versions. So this is different. We've done a lot of cover shows before, and usually it's about you have a bad cover, find a new cover.
Right.
And this isn't that. This is, you can have more than one great cover. And when I asked her about this and just she's like, yeah, this is something new that I'm doing. She said, I've been watching what the big 5 publishers do with their books. And she sees that they are changing covers quite often, and she says when one cover doesn't strike a reader, something completely different might get noticed. And so the idea behind this is that you start with one cover that has a certain vibe to it. It all comes into play, right, Penny? Like the colors you use, the font you use, all that kind of stuff. And you start with that and you literally ride that wave for a while until you start to get the feeling that maybe it's kind of run its course. And then you introduce a different cover.
Yes.
And that cover is going to attract different readers, you know what I mean? It's like those little nuanced changes. And we're not talking about, honestly, her covers, they were very different, but they were also very much on brand for her as well, which I thought was smart. It's not like she's going to throw out something that doesn't look like any of her other work. But it really was incredible how she said, depending on the specific interests of her reader, and she writes, this is for what it's worth for everybody listening, the book that she was, her most recent book is a suspense, amateur sleuth, suspense novel. And she said, really, that's such a broad category of reader. And there are different nuances within the suspense. And so she's like, I wanted to be able to have covers that could capture different readers that kind of fall under that suspense umbrella. And I just thought that was such a fun, exciting, and way to approach this. But I also so appreciated that she's thinking ahead, because it's so easy. We talk about this a lot. It's so easy to get wrapped up in the release of your book, right, Penny? Like, what happens at the release? How many sales am I going to get? What do I need to do right now? And yes, you should plan out your release, but it's so easy for authors to forget that you need to be working just as hard 6 months from now, a year from now. Like, if you really want that book to start generating revenue for you, it's not one of those like shoot it out of the cannon situations and it's either going to flop or it's going to take off. Like, it really takes a lot of TLC.
Yeah. And I really love that she spent, because she and I went back and forth on this, she spent so much time refining the cover and really doing her due diligence. And like you said, looking at what the big, what the big publishers do and taking note from them and taking note and looking at the bestsellers. I mean, we love working with her because she works as hard as we work on her book,
Mm-hmm.
which I love.
Yeah.
But
And
this cover
oh,
thing
go
was
ahead.
no, I'm sorry. No, go ahead. But this cover thing I thought was really inspired of her.
It
Truly,
really,
it was.
yes. And I thought of one other thing that she mentioned that I wanted to throw in here too, because I thought it was also really smart because I know I always wish I could like actually remember the titles, but then you'll have to just go searching and you'll find something else you love too. But we've done shows on knowing your audience, right, Penny? Knowing who your market
Yes.
is, who your reader is. And this was another element of the cover swap idea that she made sure to mention as well, which I thought was really smart. There's kind of this culinary, semi-cozy mystery aspect to her book, but she was smart enough to realize that that was a very a smaller segment of her audience. And she was also smart enough to recognize that true, like, culinary, cozy mystery covers very much have their own vibe that is different from a typical suspense novel, right?
Yes.
And so, yeah, so even though she knew that was a decent chunk of her potential readership just based on her storyline, she knew that the vibe of those kind of covers, the culinary cozy mystery, was not going to represent her full work very well. You know what I mean? So she could have just slapped a cozy mystery culinary cover on there, Penny, to draw people in, but she knew that's not what her storyline would fully deliver on. And she knew that wouldn't be a good experience for those specific, subgenre fans. And I thought that was really smart too, because it's one thing to say, I want to attract these people, so I'm going to do this. But it's next level to realize the importance of delivering on what you're presenting to people when they're shopping for books.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is really, and yet, and it's interesting because I have lots and lots of calls with authors, and some of them are like Marlene. Some of them are very, very clear on what their genre is, while others are kind of like, well, I think it's kind of this, and I think it's kind of that. And I think, and with all due respect to Marlene, who we love, she may have toiled in that I'm a little bit of this, I'm a little bit of that genre sandbox years ago.
Yeah.
But she's somebody who, and we love saying this on the show, she's somebody who fails fast.
Mm-hmm.
So she's very, very clear on, okay, this book didn't do well because of XYZ. I mean, she rebranded her first entire series, which I thought was a great idea.
Yep.
And the books just feel so much more, they really resonate more with that genre.
Mm-hmm.
And, she's so I think the two lessons here are take note from the bestseller list, which we preach. I know we say this all the time, and I know at some point you're like, oh my gosh, they're saying the same things over and over again. But the second part of this is you got to fail fast.
Mm-hmm.
Because at some point, and it's sometimes she had those books out, I think, for a few years, and then she thought, you know what, I think I'm going to redo the covers. We have an author right now that we've worked with for years, and she's doing the same thing. She has a whole series of romance novels, contemporary romance novels, and she's going to rebrand them. The covers worked at the time. They need to be updated. So I know that's a different conversation, Amy, but that's another side of this.
Absolutely. Knowing what works. And yeah, you're right, Marlene. And that was another element of it. She had romance aspects in her original series that she really leaned into originally. And then she kind of pulled back from that and went more with her suspense reader fans. And it was a great shift for her because she got some great play with the original angle, but I think she realized she definitely pays attention to how genre trends and what readers are looking for, how those shift. And she knew it was time to lean into the suspense aspects of it more than the romantic, tropes. She knew that really wasn't her sweet spot anymore.
Well, and I also think that this comes down to, so like, for example, Lisa Jackson, and I've enjoyed reading Lisa Jackson. My mom and I both actually were huge fans. And she does romantic suspense. Romantic suspense is very different from where Marlene was going with her first books. Romantic suspense is usually, I mean, if you're looking at this like a pie chart, it's usually 50-50. Like, you have the romance and then you have the suspense, and they both take up, equal portions of the book. Whereas Marlene's books there were romantic elements in it, but it was, in my opinion, there was a lot more, like, if you're looking at it at a pie chart, the romance wasn't taking up 50% of the book. So the fact that she leaned more into the mystery piece of it was really smart.
Yeah, she went more with the strong female lead mystery. But again, it's following, and we just talked about this in the last show recorded, being a fan of your genre and keeping up with what's going on and which books are really hitting it out of the park, and reading those books and getting a feel for, this is what readers are looking for. This is what they're responding to. And no, that doesn't mean you need to go rewrite your book, but maybe that will give you some insight into how you can better brand your book.
Yeah, exactly. I absolutely agree with that. And I think that hopefully you have gleaned, if you're in this position where you think, the book didn't do, and we've had this happen numerous times with authors. We had an author, I think it was a couple of years ago, and she had a book that she insisted was erotic romance. And I went through the book right after the consultation, and I said, it's a very sexy book, but it's not erotic romance. So, and I want to say at the time that she actually redid the cover, because the cover reflected so what happened is you have a cover that reflects a reader demographic, and the book does not. And so your reviews are going to reflect that, your sales are going to reflect that, all of that. And once she really got her arms around that concept, which is similar to what Marlene did, she said, you know what, I need to rebrand this book. And she didn't do anything to the interior. It was literally just how the book was packaged. So anyway, Amy, this was a great idea for a show. Thank you so much. I know this was a shorter show. We always love to kind of pepper those in the mix, because sometimes you don't have that much time. Although, to the guy who's listening to our show while he's cleaning, we're very sorry if you weren't able to finish the floors, but we have more shows that you can dig into. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It is always our pleasure to present this podcast, and we love reviews. So whether you email them to us or put them up on iTunes, we always check. We have a promo going on, which is in the show notes. We're very excited about it. So check that out. Lots of cool swag. I am going to be I'm sorry, by the time this podcast airs, it'll be over. So if I saw you at Romance Writers of America, hi, because I'm headed out there next week, and I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to the genre fiction conferences like Thriller Fest, romance. These authors are so fun. And they're not just fun because they write about, cool stuff, but they're fun because they always have these great ideas. And I sit in sessions and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. We should, definitely tell some of our authors about that. So I'm really looking forward to that. We will see you in the next show. Thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.